How is everyone? Maybe we're all here for change, basically. Different types of change and so on. So as you can see, this mic is great because I will walk around, I will move around, because activity is what I do. Basically, today I'm going to talk to you about mastering interview techniques and skills. Does anyone out there love interviews? No, very few people do. It's a little bit like your driving test interviews. If anyone's done your driving test, you're trying to show what you know while you're doing it at the same time. The way your brain works basically is you're having to do so many things consciously while trying to show you can do them, while trying to show that you know them, while trying to make an impression and stand out. So that's why interviews feel very unnatural. So in my experience of supporting people with interviews as a career advisor with change guidance, it is exporting and exploring with people to support them so they feel ready for interviews, so they feel ready for their change. Yeah, so I'm trying to just get it to move. Yep, Pat was good enough to try that.
Sorry now, maybe that stopped working for some reason.
Yeah.
Does that work now? Try the up arrow.
Yeah, it does now, perfect. Yeah, there you go, we've just made a change straight away. We've got this thing to work. Sometimes these things don't. If you noticed, I remained calm while that was happening. I don't want to give too much away, but part of what I'll talk to you about is when you're in an interview, you will get thrown sideways in terms of different questions. Part of it is maintaining calm, okay? Because sometimes the interview won't go the way you want. The questions will be difficult. The questions may be an area that you haven't prepared for, or you have and you're trying to recall that, okay? So essentially, what is an interview? An interview is a conversation between one or more people. I'm starting with the basics because a lot of the times the interviews that you go for will be very, very different. The conversation you will have with people, I'm trying to basically simplify it down so you can look at it and go, feel okay with it. Because people build an interview up massively in their mind. So even if I said the word interview at the start, everyone went, oh, Jesus, no. You know, straight away people are like, I don't really love interviews. During the course of this presentation, I'll talk to you about the fact that you are more in control than you think you are. Because when you go into an interview, you have a lot more than the interviewer has or interviewers have. Okay, so during the course of the presentation, that's what I will talk to you about. Because what I want you to do is I want you to move from 66 to close to 100 as you can get. That is, before you walk into an interview, you have 66% of that interview straight away. What I want you to do is be confident about the rest. So part of the change guidance support that I do and the appointments that I do is geared around preparing people for that interview. Okay? So there are very different types of interviews. Maybe you've experienced some of these, maybe not. Like a structured interview. Part of what you're trying to, this is the show what you know bit. Part of what you're trying to do is score well. As you can see from the graphic there is the person standing out. What you want to do is you want to stand out to show that you have more skills, are better matching to that company than the other people on the interview panel. So what you're trying to do is show what you know. In a structured interview, the interviewers will interview on different parts. It could be the people side, it could be the skills side, it could be the different technical aspects of the job. They'll have keywords and key elements that they want to see as part of that, and they're going to score it accordingly. What knocks people off their stride is if a question comes in and they don't feel prepared for it, or a question comes in and they haven't prepared examples for it. So that's the 66 to 100 bit, which is I want you to be prepared for an interview. But as well as that, be prepared for what you didn't expect or what comes at you, that you're basically like, okay, how do I answer that? All right? Like a clicker not working, for example. So the unstructured interviews, we're all going to interview in very, very different industries. Some interviews are going to be very structured and it's basically the question and they want the answer and they want basically different key areas and key score tasks. Some interviews will not be like that at all. Some interviews, like say hospitality, for example, it could just be one person, or a small, medium enterprise, it could be one person. They don't have a HR department. They have them, what they know about their business and what they want for their business. So it's not going to be a big, huge structured process. It's going to feel a lot like a conversation. So likewise, same as a structured interview, it's basically you being ready for that. As I said, they are going to be different across different work areas. Like some interviews, for example, you look at kind of like IT-based sectors or the likes of kind of pharma sectors and so on. Realistically, there's going to be a hiring manager, and they'll look at the kind of HR questions. There's going to be a technical manager, you're going to look at that, and it's going to be like kind of the section manager who may look at the people side of things. So it'll be you and 3 people trying to basically kind of win them 3 people's focus on the fact that you suit that role. The interviews will ask different things of you because there are very different types. I mean, if you look at, say, civil service in Ireland or roles in emergency service, for example, it won't just be a conversation. It will be a practical, it will be a medical, it will be an interview, and it may be an aptitude test. You may have done them before, or you may not. You may be comfortable and familiar with them, or you may not. Part of what I would like you to do is to be as prepared as you can when you go into them particular types of things. Is an interview a skill that can be coached? Yes, it is. 100% it is. Totally it is. Like, I see a lot of possibility in this room. I see a lot of hope in this room. And I also see a lot of ability in this room. If you can have a conversation with someone and communicate your value at a fundamental level, that's why I started off with what an interview is. You can do an interview. Because what you want to do is basically communicate your value to that company, because you are an individual of value. You have skills, you have knowledge, you have experience, and you have something to bring. So I want you to properly communicate that. So what I just want to do is I want to check with you how ready you are for change right now. Okay? We're going to do that in the form of a hand clap. If you're kind of sort of not sure what you'd like to do and you're not too sure whether you want to change, your job is okay, it's not too bad, but you're kind of not too sure. Or if you're like, I am sick of this job, I want to change right now. Or if you want to make a change happen right now. So if you just want to slightly make a change happen, just do a slow hand clap. If you really want to make a change happen, clap very, very fast. Thanks very much. The cool thing about that is the person in the next room went, oh, someone's clapping in the room. He must have said something good. No, basically, that's your fuel. That's your fire. What I want you to do is I want you to hold on to that fuel and that fire, because that's the bit that's going to drive you and keep you moving forward when you don't get the interview, and when you don't get offered an interview, or when you don't get on a panel. So that's the fuel in your gut that's going to keep you moving forward if you get a rejection. I've been a job seeker. Through the course of my life, I still will be a job seeker. I've had disappointments. I've had jobs that give an interview. I've had jobs that don't give an interview in the past. It is disheartening to a degree. A lot of it, I suppose, is how much you want something and how forward you drive for it. It can be a challenge to get rejections. But what I would ask you to do is keep going forward. If you're not getting interviews, it's probably your CV. If you're getting interviews and you're not getting onto the final panels or the different elements in regards to that, it's probably your interview technique. I don't say that to be cold and harsh. I say that because that is the fact. You know, realistically, you're not representing yourself the best way you can, either in CV format or interview. So, since COVID, basically, a lot of interviewing has changed. Sometimes, basically, it can be a competency-based interview in person. And when you walked into this room, you sat down and basically sat in the chair. Maybe this feels a little bit like an interview, you know. And the way you sit sometimes in a chair, you crunch up your core and you constrict how you can breathe. Because if you break it down to its fundamentals, what you need to be able to do in an interview is you need to be able to be calm, centered, grounded, and to be able to communicate and let air in and out of your lungs to be able to answer a question. So when you're sitting in an interview, don't scrunch yourself up. I'll come to that a bit later. Competency-based interviews, skills. What have you done? What can you do? How did you do it? Give me an example. This is the 0 to 66%. You are 100%, you are totally in control of that 66%. You know what you can do. You can generate examples from what you can do. So you can have all this before you go into interview and have it ready for the interviewer, relevant to the competencies that you applied for in the first place. Online interviews are great. If you get an online interview, right, what I want you to do is do this, right? Just buy a packet of Post-its, Post-its, and stick them up behind the back of the screen. If you need to basically retain a lot of information, and rather than kind of being sitting there kind of going, oh God, it'll look like you're looking at the screen. They're not going to know any difference. You will, they won't. Again, I want you to have the best opportunity that you can, the best chance that you can to get the best opportunity that you can. Group-based interviews. Different from panel interviews. Panel interviews is like kind of the HR manager, the learning manager. Group-based interviews, sometimes in kind of tasks like emergency services, are something that's very much geared around kind of you being in a leadership role or you being as part of a team. They're not very common in Ireland, but they do happen, where it's like a task, it's you in a group and how you behave in a group. So it might be part of an overall recruitment and selection process. The presentation interview, a bit like this. You're presenting. They're going to ask you to present because it's part of the job. Can this be developed? Yes. I used to hate, and I'm using the word hate, presenting in front of people. Had to build up skills and confidence with that. So anything can be taught, anything can be developed, any skills can be developed within you. You have the capacity to do that and the power to do that. So the overall kind of presentation side of things may form part of it. There's probably loads of different, I'll try and leave some time for our questions if I can at the end. During the course of different types of sectors that you apply for, they will have different interviewing processes. Like say the civil service in Ireland may have like maybe an aptitude test bit. It will have the interview bit. It may have a practical bit. This bit here, if you're going for a particular role, you decide. I said at the start, you're a person of value. If you're going after 2, 3, 4 interviews, is that company worth it? Is that worth your time, effort and energy? You decide, because you're a person of value. So if you're going for interview processes, 2, 3, 4 of them, just so don't sell yourself short, basically, is my feedback to you. This is the 66% bit. The bit before that is, before you even apply for the job, it's not canvassing for you to basically ask, what's the salary point? What's the salary range? Where am I expected to come in on this? Because you want to know that that job is worth your time, effort and energy. Because if you're going to branch from one salary to another salary, you want to make damn sure that that salary is going to be worth your ability and skills. Alongside that, it could be, you can ask about the interview process. What's involved in the interview process? What will I have to do? And so on. In tandem with this, you can talk about the salary scale, the jobs, the way the job's going to be structured. Is it in office? Is it basically kind of blended and so on? So fully sure, is this a job that you want to continue to at interview? I did kind of jump slightly on that, but I think it's really, really important because people tend to basically kind of, I got an interview, I'll go for it. Decide whether it's for you. Okay? Just decide whether it's for you. So this is the 66% I talked about. You walk into an interview, you know your CV, you know your cover letter, you know your application form. This is what you have. You can generate examples from that. Stuff them with keywords that you have relevant to the job. Ram it in the face of the person who is going to be doing the hiring process. This is what I can do. You walk in with this. They see you on a piece of paper, you know you for the life you've lived. You can generate examples, and I'll show you ways too for the actual kind of questions, and you can take control of the interview. It is a two-way street. The bits in between is LinkedIn and or other networking profiles. Yes, you can add that into relevant to your CV, because a lot of interviewers do tend to look on LinkedIn prior to meeting you. It's like, am I going to meet this person? And do they have the skills that I want them to have? Develop and branching skills. Do you ever hear that phrase, kind of dress for the job that you want rather than not the job that you have? Exact same with your experience. Potentially what you may get to do, you will have transferable skills, you will have abilities that you use in your current role. I hope they're on your CV and your profile, but along with that, if you're gearing towards a different type of job or you're trying to branch towards it, you can use the job that you're in at the moment. If it's leadership, if it's sales, if it's communication, if it's project work, and so on. Have one eye on the job that you want and the interview you want to get, and have one eye on the tasks that you need to fulfill, and see if you can match the two of them up. Basically, before you make a choice about the company and the 66% bit I talked about, know the competencies and skills. When you look at the job ad, is it worth your time? Is it worth your skills? Is it growth for you? The skills, do you have them? How do you have them? Where do you have them? How can you show them? The person spec. It's not going to all be about your skills. It's about teamwork. It's about kind of communication. It's about your different elements that you will bring to a company. Probably the most important thing on that slide. Is this a company I want to work for? Do they work in the way that I want to work? Are they worth your time, your skills, your knowledge, your experience, your ability? That can come down to kind of values. That can come down to ethos. So, preparing questions. You can mind map a few questions out from the competencies and the person specs. This is you preparing and narrowing the bits that you don't feel comfortable with. That's 66 to 100. So you're giving yourself a greater advantage over the interviewer, basically. You can prepare questions, have them ready for the interview. So when the question goes, say the interviewer goes, give me if you know the random questions you ask, like kind of, oh, if you were an animal, what type of animal would you be? And you're sitting there going, shut the it's like, seriously? You can kind of have an example. If something like that happens, like random questions, and that's a genuine question I've been asked, I was like, what? So basically there's bits that you can kind of calm yourself, compose yourself, and kind of respond in a way that draws you right back to the actual job itself. Like, it was a monkey, by the way, just so you know. Okay. Because I like bananas. So basically, mind map some interview questions. Mind map them out. So if in the job spec, that's where the goal will be. This is what a company wants you to do in the role, in the department, in the job. You can just give examples of when you've done it, how you've done it, where you've done it, and the results and so on. Yeah, okay. How you do this is Star and Carl. You probably have heard of them before. Star kind of works better when you had a nice result and that was cool, brilliant. Situation, task, action, result. What was the situation that you're going to talk about for your example? What were the tasks that you had to do? What actions did you actually do? And what was the result? So if you're structuring an example towards a particular type of competency, so say if it's sales, what was the situation? Oh, the sales were at 10,000 and the company wanted them to be higher. What were the tasks? Well, we had to find some customers, had to connect with them customers, and we had to basically kind of turn them leads into sales. What were the actions? Okay, well, what I did was I connected, I created events, I used my digital media skills. What were the results? Tenfold increase or whatever, you know what I mean? So basically, that's a real concrete example that has a result. Where this tends to fall down is if you had something that there's no learning in here, whereas there's learning here. Like you might get a really irate customer and the result may be they still leave, you move them down from being DEFCON 10 or on the Richter scale 10 down to 4. So you make them feel heard. So the context was customer unhappy. The actions was you had to listen, you had to empathize. The results were they felt less pissed off with the company, the business, the reason that they were annoyed in the first place. What was your learning? The learning was, I suppose, that maybe products were defective or kind of how we engage or the wait time and stuff like that. Learning's not in here. The learning's here. So generate your examples on the basis of this. And that will help you give a clearer kind of position in relation to bringing yourself into alignment. Remember the first slide, the person standing out. You're trying to bring yourself into alignment with the actual company and what they're looking for to stand out. Practical steps. Clothes. Comfortable clothes. Relevant clothes. You know, a lot of times people kind of go in a suit, for example, and then it's not comfortable and so on. You know. Try them on beforehand. Don't be on the day going, oh, this doesn't fit. Oh, no, there's a split, there's a seam. Just have it all ready. Your mindset. This may seem weird, okay? So indulge me for a minute, right? When you're in your suit or your clothes for an interview, your superhero stance is basically your hands on your hips. I guarantee you, if you do this, one, you may feel a little bit silly, but two, you will feel 10 foot tall. Just by the nature of it. That's not mine, that comes from, I think it may be Susan Jeffers, but it's like they feel the fear and do it anyway. But it's basically about getting you into the mindset that you feel good for the interview. Build up your confidence, because you may have gone for many, many interviews and you don't feel confident about interviews. So you're trying to build up your confidence with interviews again. Know your route. Like as you got here today, you knew your route, you knew what you were going to take, you knew public transport and so on. Know your route, just the practicalities with regards to that. To give yourself time to arrive there for 20 minutes beforehand. Why? Less stress, but you get to observe the company. You may get a nice administrator and he, she or they might kind of, you might just go, oh, busy day, so you lots of people for interview. No, we've only 3. Cool. Okay. Or you might kind of observe the company and everyone's walking around going, oh, this place is a load of shit. You know, so you're looking at that going, is that a company I want to work for? Someone's walking around like banging their head off a wall. Do I really? Okay. You know, so you get to observe the company. You're present, you get to ground yourself and you get to observe the company and just be there to prepare yourself to be there for the actual interview itself. When you get ready, rest, stop. Do not be wrecking your head on the day of the interview, cramming everything into your brain. The way your brain works cognitively is you have to establish connections between the information that you keep cramming into it. The more information you cram, the bigger challenge it's going to be for recall. So that's going to be the hardest thing. So just when you're ready, when you feel ready, stop. Do not wreck your own head. Because all you'll do is just cook your own head and basically be going thing after thing after thing. The breath of life, grounding. They're probably all sitting out there going, this guy's telling us how to stand and how to breathe. What the hell is he talking about? Like, basically, like, to be able to answer a question, you need to be able to breathe. To be able to be present, you need to be grounded in where you are. So, the breath of life. If you get asked a question, right, like do this a couple of times. When you land in the reception, take a breath in for 4, breathe out for 4, and back in for 4. You're like, okay, right, so I'm doing a superhero stance, and I'm standing, what am I doing? And I'm breathing. It'll ground you. It'll center you from where you are. Along with this, if you get asked a question that you're not sure of the answer of, okay, so just watch this as if you've asked me a question. How long did that feel? Did that feel very long? No. I gave myself thinking time and I put air in my lungs so I can actually put an answer out there. It means then if you get asked that question, like, if you're an animal, what animal would you be? You're just like, in your head, you're like, what? Well, you're giving yourself thinking time and you're putting air into your lungs to be able to respond, you know. Balanced body language and seat and posture. I had hoped there'd be a seat here, so this is going to be a bit strange. Okay, right. When you're sitting for interview, you need to be sitting in such a way that your core is engaged, not like, because that doesn't work. You know, you're trying to be balanced, you're trying to be grounded, you're trying to be able to let air flow through your diaphragm to be able to respond and speak. Where people fail in interviews, they don't answer the question that was asked. They basically answer the question they think they have heard, and they ramble off, and the hiring manager is sitting there going, what time's lunch? Because they're not hearing what they want. Your lesson and your impact. Have your examples and answer the question you're asked. Tell me a time of when you delivered sales, or vague questions. Or tell me a time of when you deliver customer service. Question the question. If you don't want me asking you, do you mean like when I delivered quality customer service, or a time when I supported customers having a negative experience? You've turned the interview back on them. And as well as that, a good few times they'll give you the answer back. It gives you thinking time. And a lot of interviewers, a lot of them aren't trained. Some are, some aren't. And they'll go, oh, well, what I really want is, I want an example of when you supported a customer who had a negative experience to bring them to a positive experience. You have your thinking time. You now have breath in your lungs. And as well as that, you're able to basically kind of give them back the answer they've just handed you on a plate. So as well as that, they're giving you the keywords: negative, positive, customer, support. So you can just weave them back in with the example that you've already prepared, and you're scoring yourself the best way in that particular question. So question the question. You may get asked a question of, why are you leaving your other company? Why do you want to join this company? I hope you've asked this question already of yourself. Why do I want to join this company? Explain to your good boy. Like, fair enough, you could say my boss was a wacko and, you know, it was this, that, and the other. But you can have, it can explain you're a good boy. Oh, well, in a positive way. I really like the way the values of this company, and it looks like really progressive in terms of personal development. And I really want to join that particular culture because I'm a person who wants to develop. It's excellent to engage with mentoring programs that are really, really forward thinking. Code, my previous boss was a wacko, and I want a good boss. So basically, have your, explain your good boy in a positive way, and positive hello, you know. It is a two-way street. Please remember with interviews, it's a two-way street. You are interviewing them. People forget this because sometimes they want that job so badly. Is this a company you want to work for? Get up out of bed every day and go to. Is it going to pay you the way you want to be paid? Is it going to treat you the way you want to be treated? Is it going to give you the security you want in a particular job, in the different skills? So please remember that. Is this job worth your time, effort, and energy? And it is a two-way street. There's stuff down the job spec that isn't clear or is kind of vague. Ask about it. Because you're deciding on them too. Preparing your questions. You know, kind of question at the end of an interview, it's like, oh, have you have any questions for us? And people go, I just want to run away. Please. You know, this is the bit where you ask the question of the company. You ask the questions of them. So you turn the interview on them. Yeah, of course, ask the kind of questions beforehand. There's a thing called the question brag. I cannot for the life of me remember who came up with the question brag, but someone else did. You basically phrase your question in the form of a brag. So if it's customer service, you kind of go, well, can you give me an idea of what kind of software you use in relation to keeping and retaining and engaging customers? Because previously in my last job, I used, say, Salesforce and or other different stuff like, you know. I'm really, really keen on using software, but also keeping that human touch and engagement with the customer. It sounds schlocky. It sounds like you're putting icing on the cake. But really what you're doing is basically questioning and a bit of a brag. As well, what I would ask you to do is you can form your question brag in, I'll come to it a bit later in terms of visualization. What you want to check out is the onboarding process for the next 3 months. You could ask, okay, how are you going to onboard me as a person? Working conditions. Check out the salary, where it's going to start. If they're not vague about the salary, I would hope you would have checked this out before when you were applying for it. Hybrid conditions, working conditions, the working culture, and the possibility of growth in the company. All of these questions you can ask. You can use visualization techniques. Give me an example, say, if someone is asking you the question, you could say, well, if you could picture me in the role, what would you say is my first 3 months? How would you support me in the role? They have to picture you in the role. They're going to tell you about the onboarding of the role. They'd be like, oh, we don't know, we're just going to take someone on and just, I don't leave them in the corner. Or, you know, you're just like, well, okay, I'm not working for you. So they have to picture you in the role then. I think thank you very much for your attention. You're more than welcome. I'll be part of the CV clinic, the interview clinic, and the overall career support. After today, I hope you would have got a flyer in relation to how I support people. I deliver my appointments online through Zoom. It could be education, it could be training, or it could be employment. The last thing to say is I wish you the very best of luck in whatever pathway you take and the interviews that you do. So thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you, Stephen.